It was called The End of America. The End of America. It brought in over 750,000 paid customers. It's game over, man. It's game over. And the business went on to be, the $100+ million a year, business. The owner of the company, Porter Stansberry, now has, a charter, like 3 monster home. It only takes that one campaign. So in your universe, that's why, when you can be prolific, right? Like when you're prolific, it's a great thing. In our business, it's why we don't have a big team, like a big marketing. It's why we don't have a big team in general, but why we don't have a big marketing team. Because we don't need a big marketing team because we're not in the hit business. You are in the hit business.
So what would you attribute that to? Because for me, and I've seen the campaign, my impression would be that it was very disruptive, and it was early on in the edited voiceover video, where you kind of got sucked into something, and then 30 minutes later you were finishing this video that then you could read.
Yeah, great question, and I think that you're
technology that really kind of drew people.
So let me give some context, because I do think that this is instructional for you guys. It's a little bit of a deviation, but I do think that this is valuable for you guys. And so the campaign was called End of America. And basically the message, and just bear with me here because you're going to see the value of me sharing this with you in just a minute. The idea behind this marketing campaign was the belief that the U.S. economy was going to change radically because the dollar, the U.S. dollar, was going to lose its status as the world's reserve currency. So right now, everything, oil, everything is pegged against the dollar because it's considered, right, it's the primary world currency. It's recognized as the world currency. There are now competitors for that status, right? Because as the world's reserve currency, we experience a lot of advantages. Anyway, the message was the United States is about to, the economy is about to get crushed because the dollar is going to lose its status as the world's reserve currency. When that happens, the economy is going to crash, the markets are going to crash, blah, blah, blah. And so the VSL was, do you need something? You need a cord? Oh, you good? Okay. The VSL, as a side note, was 1 hour and 17 minutes. It was 1 hour and 17 minutes. About an hour of it, did not mention the newsletter. There was no talk of the product, no talk of the offer, none of that. The first hour, all it did was present evidence to back up this premise that the United States was going to lose its status, the dollar was going to lose it. And as you went through the first hour, you felt like you just got an education on the economy, what was taking place, what was happening. Now, the VSL was an ugly VSL. So black, text on a white background, that's it. It was read by Porter Stansberry, the owner of the company, who was very monotone. It's insane if you listen to it now, and you can find it on YouTube. And for 1 hour, all they did was present evidence, stat after stat. They showed here's why we think it's going to lose the world's reserve. Here's the talk. Here are the meeting notes from this. Here is what the Fed recently published. Here is what happens when a country loses its status as here's what the Chinese say are going to happen next. Blah blah blah. Right, this whole thing where the argument was rock solid. You had no choice in the end but to say, oh my gosh. And because of that, they ended up with 750,000 subscribers. There's number one, big ideas. This is a little abstract, but take this and let this sit for a little bit. Big ideas have a very specific time. meaning there are, big ideas exist within a time frame. An idea that today is potentially a big idea, in 3 months from now might not be a big idea, right? Because of the environment changes, the news changes, what's forefront of people's mind changes and shifts. And so there's this idea of timing. I believe that, the end of America was a very, at the time, it was a very powerful, emotional way to talk about something that they talked about before, but just in a much more catastrophic way. At the time, there was a negative sentiment. There was this belief talk that there was this kind of negative thing on the horizon. So that, coupled with the fact that the VSL was still very, very early in its entrance to the world, and so response rates were still through the roof.
Yeah.
And so, but it's why, like, look, the right idea at the right time to the right audience, when you're in the right business, overnight. Only takes one campaign. Now, in Robin's world, right, like that's, that one campaign can forever change their business. In businesses like, let's say, ours, it only takes one campaign to grow your business. Like, I grew marketing funnel automation for the first 18 months off the back of one campaign. I had one customer acquisition campaign that I ran for 18 months to cold traffic.
Was that your 6-figure?
Yes. That just over and over and over every day. Every day I got the numbers of how much we spent, how much we brought in every day, right? And the money that we brought in, sometimes was lagging a little bit, but I just got to see months and months and months and months.
Did you stop after 18 months because you saw it wasn't working?
Yeah, like the numbers just started getting, and at that point we had introduced another campaign, and that campaign was really starting to take off. But I will only stop a campaign. So, a couple things. I'll stop a campaign if, number one, if it's not working anymore, right? And the reality is this, that campaigns have a life. So, because ideas have a life. So now some ideas are very time specific. Like if we rolled out like Wimbledon's coming up, right? If we rolled out something that has a very short lifespan. If it had to do with Wimbledon right now, it's right. But then there are other campaigns, the forehand, secret or whatnot, that's much more evergreen, right? And so in certain businesses are more, give the opportunity for more evergreen campaigns. See, it's a funny thing because there's a give and take in every business. So let me give an example. So in the investing world, right, in the world of newsletter publishing, like my biggest client, okay? So these guys just kill it, crush it. They could do, like at points they could do 3,000-4,000 new customers a day, and these guys. So unbelievable size and scale and scope. But the thing that they don't have, the negative side, is that everything is very time-based. So they've got short-lived campaigns. So they don't have campaigns that they can run for 18 months. They don't have campaigns usually that they can run for 6 months. That's a rarity. That's an anomaly if they have one campaign that they can run for 6 months, right? Usually their campaigns are running for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks if they're lucky. And so what that means is that they're constantly in creation mode. So they get the benefit of scale, of size, but they don't get the benefit of evergreen ongoing. Whereas we, especially you,
serve is going to stand the test of time.
The serve, your method for improving the serve, that's it. From now until eternity, it's going to work. Forehand, it's going to work. And so you get the benefit of evergreen. You get the benefit of building up this portfolio of conversion vehicles, of campaigns that we can just cycle people through, that every time you add one that we get dialed in, your business just improved long term. Right? Every time we roll one out, we dial it in, we see that it works, you just improved your business long term. These guys just improved their business for a moment in time. And so that's the difference. So I'll stop a campaign if the numbers just aren't working anymore. Like if it's just not playing out, the numbers, or if the product, let's say we've moved beyond it. Like in my case, if I don't believe in the product anymore, or if it's just not appropriate anymore, for me, just because it sells doesn't mean I'm going to sell it. You know what I mean? And so, but for you, everything that, that's a beautiful thing about what you do, is that what you say is true today is going to be true tomorrow and next month. Not so for everything that we do. It's also, just as a side note, for what it's worth, and this kind of more applies to you, I would think, than anybody else, but that's why, just as a side note, I am a big believer in talking about and teaching strategy, not tactics. Because tactics change, tactics have trends, fads, things that work today tactically don't necessarily work tomorrow. The VSL, the doodle, you've seen the doodle videos, right? That was a tactic to do a pattern interrupt. It worked like gangbusters at one point. In some markets, it doesn't work at all anymore. And so tactically, right, that has a lifespan. But the strategy of a pattern interrupt, that works, that will work for now on, that will work from here to eternity. But how you execute that strategy tactically, that changes. So, make sense?
How would you compare like Gora's strategy of launching every day basically in the shorter window to like Golden Hippo, like Craig Clemens? Like it seems like Beverly Hills MD, Gundry, like they have the same offers on native that work for years or something.
Yeah, well, so so the difference is in that, so in the financial market, and this is one of the things, like it's one of those, it's amazing how just in the world, in the universe, there is always a give and take. There's always pluses and minuses. And so the universe of financial investing is huge. Yeah. The problem is that it changes so rapidly. And because it changes so rapidly, market sentiment changes rapidly. And so the issue is that because they are trying to tap into the biggest universe, they're using big ideas. Big ideas are grounded in market sentiment, in what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what is top of the mind. And so they will capture what is top of the mind today and hope that it remains top of the mind for as long as possible. But what we've seen is that in that market, it ain't very long. And so, but now if you switch gears and let's say with Craig, and they've done an amazing job, like, right? Tremendous job. Like if you look at one of my clients, Al Sears. So if you look, Al Sears, he's long blonde hair, like he's this. Exactly. Crazy operation. Oh, the market's open in case anybody wants to know that. When you have, let's say, for just an oddball example, diabetes cure discovered on page 324 of the King James Bible, right? That doesn't go out of that, right? See how that there are some markets that allow for messages that are big idea. They tap into the sentiment of the market, but that won't change. It's not changing, and so it's really, there's that, and it's also, and I know that this might seem a little abstract, but it really is the type of ideas that you're able to use. So again, Financial, they're looking for that completely unaware, so they have to go indirect. So that in order to go indirect, you have to start with what is on the mind of the market that I can tap into, and then circle around and bring them to the offer. You know, one of the health, so I can't remember his last name, gentleman. His first name's Paul. He runs the health division for Agora Financial. So each of the Agora divisions have their own health division. And if you remind me, I'll get you a copy of this clip if you didn't see this. He talks about what he calls the grotesque head, which I love the name, like the grotesque head. He says they use the grotesque head. The question that I asked him was, how congruent are your ideas and the leads of your campaign with the thing that you are going to offer? Like, how congruent? Like, in other words, let's say we were going to sell olive leaf extract. Okay, we were going to sell olive leaf extract. Well, the typical supplement marketer, advertiser would say, well, let's start off with, you know, the magic of olive leaf extract, or how to lower blood pressure, or how to improve digestion, or something like that that is directly tied, that's much more direct, right? And he said, some of our best campaigns use a grotesque head. And he said the way that he described the grotesque head was, the grotesque head in many cases has nothing directly to do with where we're going, but it taps into what is top of the mind for the market and gives us an opening to lead them to this. I said, give me an example. Like, give me an example. And so he, off the cuff, he gave a made-up example, and he said something like, this is rough, you'll get the gist of it. The idea was something like how Hillary Clinton is responsible for, Hillary Clinton is personally responsible for over 700,000 deaths every year, something like that. And I was like, all right, so that seems a little outrageous to me. Like, give me a little, right? Like, you know, and he was just giving an example.
600,000.